Street by street, so-called Islamic State is losing its last footholds in Iraq and Syria. The caliphate is almost finished on the battlefield. But what of the children whose minds it moulded? The families who became part of Islamic State? I've come to northern Iraq to find those now trying to rebuild their lives after ISIS, to meet its child soldiers. If you didn't say the right things, how did they punish you? Its former slaves, and to search for some of the families of foreigners who chose to join ISIS. Many of them have now disappeared without trace. In a classroom in northern Iraq, they're singing to overcome their memories. These 9- and 10-year-olds were all captives of so-called Islamic State, where music was haram, forbidden. From their smiles, you might not guess the violence they've seen, but they're all scarred by it. ISIS enslaved Aveen and her brother Ryan 3 years ago. In the time of ISIS, what was it like then?
Okay.
So Ryan, what did they tell you about the guns? The children at this rehabilitation centre are Yazidis, part of the non-Muslim minority singled out for particular cruelty by ISIS. In 2014, their villages were seized and thousands of men murdered on the spot. The women were sold into slavery and children taken for re-education to serve the so-called caliphate. What did they say about your family?
When first they talk about their experiments, it was not actually easy and good, but now they can express it in a different way.
Because at first they were just too scared to talk about it.
Yeah, now they can talk about it, but freely, but in a better way. Like they don't express this so much, I wouldn't say anger, but they feel comfortable and relaxed now. Oh, Saremriva, Mirvet Gustin, Gusti, Oina Tassion. No, Harold Boa. Daddy Masha chicken was Malina.
Now, every day brings more Yazidi children to camps like this one, Ruanga, as they return from captivity. And many not only witnessed atrocities, they became instruments in the ISIS project themselves. The terror group trained thousands of boys like these. It called them Lion Cubs of the Caliphate. They were fighters, informers, suicide bombers. More than 50 boys blew themselves up defending the biggest ISIS-held city, Mosul, before it fell in July. Some were children of foreign fighters, others recruited or kidnapped from local families. Zahed is a 14-year-old Yazidi boy, reunited with his father just 3 weeks ago. But his 3 years away have left a gulf between them. Zahed lost his native language, Kurdish, and was forcibly converted to the ISIS version of Islam. You spent all that time You know, and they were teaching you guns and they were teaching you about the Quran. What were they telling you about the Quran?
نقول إنه نحن على حق وإذا متنا على خط الرباط نروح على الجنة وأجر كبير ويجيك حسنات.
If you didn't say the right things, what did they do? How did they punish you?
يقتلوني.
And Zahed nearly was killed as he was launched into an attack just 5 months ago over the Syrian border.
كنا نمشط المطار تبع دير الزور.
شلون؟
كنا نمشطه. إيه وفتنا على بيت كان بيه واحد ضربني طلقة.
How's your leg now?
جا شوي وجعني.
Who did they say the enemy was?
والكل بس هم 70 دولة يحاربونا. كفار.
The infidels, the non-Muslims. According to ISIS, Zahed's own father is an infidel, and after 3 years, not surprisingly, part of the boy's mind may still belong to the group he was forced to fight for.
تأثير ليبويا اللي بانو ساقلك ليبويا يعني تقريبا عادية بس تأثير ليبويا يعني مثلا ديم تقريبا فان مقطع ويدوان سر فيسبوك وان فاتكا تأثير ليبويا بس أسبهورتم فقط.
What do they show the videos?
بخدي وكالة أو جانا لسر يوتيوب وان هناك مقطع أو أنتين في يوتيوب وان وجادا بعد دور كده وان وتشتي هواية مثلا أو اللي نيري بخدي أز جانا شيد بهم وهار اللي نيري بجم ما بلاني بول وهارش بيراك إن شاء الله أو بيني بخدي أز زانم تشتي وصار بيني جارنا براستي.
Aveen and Ryan, returning from their music class, are taking me to meet their mother, Halima. She and Aveen were separated from Ryan when ISIS captured them. The family later paid a $28,000 ransom for his release. Ryan never had to fight for ISIS, but Halima says that while he was in captivity, he became attracted to weapons. As for Halima, she suffered the fate of all captured Yazidi women.
بخوادي زبويد فكريم زارد وكويش داكات برند برنا معسكرانج بر السلاح حيوان مهارو يكي زتفرود ما يكي بيس ونشمره.
Halima was forced to be a domestic servant and sex slave. Her captors' wives, she says, were as cruel as the men themselves, and other local families did nothing to help her or other Yazidis. She says many relatives are still in that living hell. Now, there are still some family members missing, yes? But that's a lot. I mean, that's because they say now that Daesh is almost defeated, that everywhere is almost liberated. So where do you think they are? Where could they be?
يك نزاني تيدا نجيا بيول بجن تيدا ماينا كاتش كيديز تبجي هكا حكومات بيفرابا كاتشك ماينا وها ماينا بيفرانا.
And Halima's sister-in-law, Dalal, says there's another problem. ISIS families may now be passing off captive Yazidis as their own children.
عايد كتشكتين هايد وكافان بجتشتكي نزان ناخدانا كي خواناس كن فشار سالن نزان ناديز لينا ناد بسلمان هزار وكافي حيواني نزاننا نداك النباب أو تشتكي نزانن هذا وكافي هاتنا خلاص بينا سروان تقولين بجي أو داكو بالي
سوي ضحك
This 4-year-old Yazidi boy was filmed in Mosul earlier this year with his ISIS foster father. He's dressed already as though for battle, and there's a Kalashnikov against the back wall. The boy is obviously totally dependent on the man. He can have only the vaguest memories of his real family. And here he is again, looking queasy in the back of a car as his guardian films him on a drive through Mosul. Where they're going, no one can tell. The boy's now been rescued by this man, Khalil Al-Dahi. He's a lawyer who now devotes himself full-time to searching for lost Yazidi children and reuniting them with their families, despite the efforts of ISIS to hang on to them.
يعني وقال لك اهتمامي بزاروقات كان الزارو دا مثلا وقت بين زاروكش داك قد كان وانجي زارواش خرج فروشن ودا بدربين السر مستقبل راش شيروان بيترب خرج هيلن واهتمامي بزاروكت كان داش داك قد بدي.
That kid's only 4 years old. It'll be years before he could, however young they start, before he could, you know, start to become an ISIS soldier or even a slave or anything like that. And you know, he kind of looks on the video almost as though the man's being kind to him.
أو هكذا أو نمسألة كإنساني وأنا أو مسألة كذا بزاروكش داك قد كان أو كثير زاروكا هاتينا قد كناش داك في حاله. أم زاروا بتنتي يعني مجن كا هنا كمجن كا داكاوان أم زانك أشي قد كرينا.
Khalil has rescued more than 200 children and women slaves over the past 2 years. He has a network across Iraq and Syria that constantly searches for lost and trapped Yazidis.
بري تحرير موصل وموصل التوقع دي يعني حتى سيسدي اس دي الويدري دابو سيسدي اس دي نيفا مثلا زاروك وجن وكاتشكو الويدري دابو يعني تقريبا 25 تاع سيهيش موصل دركت.
Khalil says that some ISIS families are living undetected among other displaced people in camps and have taken their captives with them. Even now, those slaves are still too scared to try to escape.
وقتها أنا كان بيجي أو الشخص ده عشت بيجي حتى الويدر الرونيو تلفونه خد كاب هبالي خرّو أو ضحية كف سالة بسري ويدا أو كرينا إنه ما درهمو برينا أو مهينا داعش خلاص نابه ومهر دولة هاشي درا سقطي هربي فجرن أفتش كش يوم رجعتين وقتها تكهم بيك تشجينا بيجي ترونشتي أنا كش شكا.
Millions of people displaced by war now live in camps across Iraq and Syria. How could you hope to find all the remaining Yazidi slaves amid this chaos? But there are other women and children also lost in the aftermath of Islamic State's collapse. Families of foreigners who chose to join the group. In the dying days of the caliphate, they've been desperate to escape its clutches.
Не выпускают, представляете? Кто узнает, кто хочет уехать, сдают, сажают.
This is a Russian Muslim mother of 3. I'll call her Zainab, though that's not her real name. She and her sister were both married to ISIS fighters. They say their husbands kidnapped their children and took them to ISIS territory. Zainab and her sister came to try to retrieve them, but got trapped. Zainab sent me frantic messages as ISIS collapsed around her. Then there was this, to another contact, before her account was silenced.
Нашли одного, но не знаю, нас не соглашаются вести, так как они боятся, что по нашим детям узнают, что они не арабы. Их казнят, вот этих проводников.
Relatives of other lost ISIS families, particularly from Muslim parts of the former Soviet Union, have also contacted me as I've been researching this story. One of them is Malika. She spoke to me from Chechnya about her daughter, Seda, and 2 small grandchildren who were with ISIS in Mosul and are now lost. Here's a family video of other Russians living under ISIS in Raqqa in Syria. ISIS wanted children like this to belong to the Islamic State if their fathers died. Now their fathers are mostly dead, but ISIS has fallen, and desperate grandparents back in Russia have no idea what's happened to the women and children.
Пропала связь 10 июля 2017 года. После этого я не знаю, где она. 2 раза приходила смс-ка от посторонних людей, что моя седа с детьми погибла. Но я не верила. Потом мне пришла смс-ка, что это неправда.
Grandmothers like her have asked me to find out anything I can. And finally, I do get a clue. I've just heard that a kidnapped Yazidi girl has been reunited with her relatives. She was rescued from one of hundreds of foreign ISIS families detained by the Iraqi authorities after the group's defeat. Were some of the lost Russian Muslim children there with her? Were there a lot of other children in the prison?
Vardılar ama yetimdiler. Sonradan şeylerin akrabaları bakıyordu onlara. Akrabalar.
I showed Mediha the photos I'd been sent by Russian grandmothers.
Şeylere benziyorlar.
Were any of these children with her in the detention camp where there were so many foreign families?
Ben bunu gördüm bir yerden. Sücünde annesi var bunun.
Oh, really? Mediha said she didn't know the girl's name, but I recognise her too. She's the daughter of one of the women who sent desperate messages as they tried to flee ISIS. Later I discover that her family has survived and will soon be sent back to Russia. But what of the other lost children I'm searching for?
That child looks familiar, and I don't know. Are they all from the same family?
Yes.
Okay. There was 1,400 who arrived at one of our emergency sites. It wasn't something we were expecting. I don't think any of the children ever smiled at us, any of us.
Aid worker Melanie Markham saw the same foreign families that Mediha was with in this camp for displaced people before they were taken to the detention centre. No names of those there have been released by the authorities. Some of the mothers may now be prosecuted for complicity in ISIS crimes. But Melanie believes that the children should be returned to other relatives.
2/3 of this group were children, so they would never be charged with a crime. And I saw tiny babies. What were they guilty of? So those children need to be with their families and with people who care for them. And whatever way that can happen, the authorities and humanitarian organisations need to work together to ensure that.
But the suffering of ISIS wives and children means little to Yazidi families like Mediha's. They've lost far more. Gathering to welcome her back, they also lament her murdered father and her mother, sister and brother, all kidnapped and still missing. Hefa is a 19-year-old Yazidi who has returned. Her father was murdered when ISIS took over their village 3 years ago. She was taken prisoner along with her 2 sisters, and they all suffered more than 3 years of sexual slavery, passed from one ISIS rapist to another. But today, she's going for a ceremony that's meant to help cleanse women like her. Hefa has come to the Yazidis' holiest place, Lalish. It's a complex of shrines where her people have celebrated their unique religion for hundreds of years, a religion ISIS regarded as devil worship. Yazidi children have always come here for a form of baptism, but now that ceremony is repeated for those like Hefa returning from ISIS captivity.
هاتنا ورب العالمين بدست شي خادي ولد حلال البكرين خدي شي خادي مرازا وبكت وبسترين للبازم استيمتر وبابا خداني ثقة في حقي وبستيمتر وطوبة كيلك وكاوام دب أفا سري ازدياو في ملتي خدي شي خادي وبسترين ومرازا وبكات خداني لالش الحانا وبيت والحالة وبرسد.
Before leaving Lalish, there are other prescribed rituals that Hefar, her sisters, and her brother should also perform. Reconnecting with their faith comforts them, they say, but they're not planning to stay here in their historic homeland.
Now, what do you think your future will be? So you'd leave all these places behind, you'd leave Lalish, you'd leave it everywhere, forever?
هي اش در العلاقه ده مستقبلي ما تشينا بالبل كانوا هرف درنا جيمايا كان فقريانا جي خوشي ام نكار المال خدا بايش.
One ceremony involves throwing a cloth over a pillar. If it lands, it's good luck, and that's something Hefar and all the other victims of ISIS desperately deserve now. But what this family is wishing for is asylum in Australia, and many of the Yazidis want to leave too. ISIS may be defeated, but they know that escaping the black shadow it's cast over this region will take much, much longer.